Hello, my dear students. I thought you were missing me, so just 10 minutes lesson speaking about the Augustan Age, and I really hope you can have what can I say? You can have just a lively lesson, just to remember something for this week. You will have another video. I don't know, probably on Wednesday or Thursday, but I really hope these slides. Will be helpful for you to forget this grave hour, as George VI said in the past. So let's speak about the Augustan Age. Why Augustan Age? Well, it was called Augustan after the period of Roman history which had achieved political stability and power, as well as a flourishing of the arts. This was a very important moment in the making of England. First of all, because the cultural innovation and public debate, which claim the virtues of politeness, moderation, rationality. So remember that the key words of the age were reason and common sense. There was a strong rejection of extremism in all its forms. According to the values of the time, man has an innate sense of what is right and what is wrong. Virtue lies in good breeding, so in good education. Why a golden age? Well, civility and moderation became the 18th century ideals. So the gentleman was, you remember probably Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. The gentleman should have morality, fashion, simplicity, and emotional authenticity. It was still a manly culture, so there was a strong taste for manly sports such as boxing, racing, and fox hunting. Important, of course, in rural social life. The role of women, well, they were still considered inferior human beings, although English women were more independently active in social and cultural life than women on the continent. They visited friends, attended the theatres and coffee houses. Some began a writing career like Arthur Ben, who was really the first novelist, the creator of the novel in the 18th century. But she could not become famous, she could not publish her novels. Actually, Daniel Defoe became famous for being the first novelist of any age in creating Robinson Crusoe. Women readers and writers influenced the rise of the novel because they had much time to spend reading and studying. Methodism, I'm not going to stop here much because probably you have studied it already with your teacher of history and philosophy, but remember that Methodism was a very important religious movement founded by John and Charles Wesley in 1729. It stressed respectability and moral dignity. It taught the importance of living with temperance and method. And very importantly, it offers services to improve the lives of the poor, and it founded the Sunday schools where people studied the Bible but more often learned to read and to write. This was important still the Victorian age. I'm going to skip the Palladian style, but because, yes, anyway, you're going to study this with your teacher of art, but I'm going to ask you what the Palladian style was, and because, yes, it's very important for the revival with the three George kings, which we are going to study in the future. So I'm going to skip also this, but yes, this is anyway important because country houses are still visited today. Many films are shot in these places, and they are extremely beautiful buildings just to watch. So wealthy merchants and landed nobility commissioned the building of these wonderful houses, of course only for rich people. Also the landscape painting, so the English garden was invented at the time, and probably you remember this scene from Pride and Prejudice. This is the bridge where Elizabeth runs away from Mr. Darcy just after his very weird declaration of love and marriage under a strong rain. And this is very important for us. So it was an age of debate. So remember that the Augustan Age was called in Italy Illuminismo. So this is also the age of enlightenment. Coffee houses in town were meeting places. They were frequented by fashionable and artistic people. They were exclusively attended by men. They became gathering points for social and professional networking and also for the discussion of ideas. They circulated the latest periodicals and pamphlets, so they were important center of culture. And mm, they were, yes, how can we say that? We can say that they can be compared to, intellectual circles today, universities, but they were even more important than university because scientists, philosophers, intellectuals, they spoke, they debated, and they wrote very important essays, pamphlets. I'm going to skip this, but remember to study William Hawthorne with your teacher of art. He wanted to satirize, especially the nobility, and he wanted to warn men against passive submission to the temptation of the corrupting material world of the time. So the time was a time of corruption, of vices, of cheating, of bribery. This is very important for us, the experimental method. What is it? Well, the experimental method proceeded from a particular experiment to a universal law. It was established by the activities of Galileo and Kepler, started from the observation of natural phenomena, along with making of hypotheses and the predictions based on the hypotheses. When a scientist or a scholar or anyway an intellectual made all this, he could reach a law. He could reach the clarification of the theory concerning the phenomenon. You probably studied this in philosophy. So this new rationalistic spirit was not seen as a challenge to religion in England as in Europe, but it was a means to better understanding of the order and harmony of a God-created universe. So they were not clashing the one against the other, but they were working together to understand the world better. All the great scientists of the period were men of faith and science at the time. One of the most important was Isaac Newton. I'm going to stop here just a bit because you studied probably much better than my explanation with your teacher of the philosophy. But John Locke is extremely important also for novels. So he was an early member of the Royal Society. He studied and wrote about philosophical, scientific, and political matters. And one of his main works was an essay concerning human understanding. So he held that knowledge is the product of sensory perception and experiences in the formation of ideas. He argued that the only knowledge man can have is a posterior one, since it is based on experience. This is extremely important. So just after you've got the experience, you can speak about anything. He claimed that any human being was born with a tabula rasa. What does it mean? Well, this is a metaphor which describes the human mind at birth. On this blank slate, morals, values, and beliefs are defined by environment and experience rather than heredity. So this means that, yes, we are the product of the love of our mom and our dad, but then we grow up in a family, in a school, we've got experience, we've got friends. So all this contribute to our personality. General ideas about the world are formed through the accumulation of sense impression and experiences. So knowledge is often the result of intuition as well as sense perception. Locke's political philosophy was expressed in two treatises of government. So he argued that men and women have natural rights, such as the right to life, liberty, and property. Men and women are natural, free, and equal. Men and women transfer some of their rights to the government to guarantee the enjoyment of their lives, liberty, and property. So governments exist by the consent of the people in order to protect their rights and promote the public good. And this is what the Council of Europe is still working on. So the Council of Europe wants good citizens in Europe with soft skills beyond the key skills. Those who fail to do so can be opposed and replaced with new ones. So Locke is also important for his defense of the right of revolution. Again, about the Enlightenment. Well, it was a European intellectual movement. It wanted to free man's mind from ignorance and superstition, which unfortunately are present in many areas of the world. It was characterized by faith in reason to achieve happiness. Again, remember the key words of the age are reason and common sense, balance and gentleness. Reason was developed by education and questioned traditional doctrines. It aimed at discovering the original state of nature. So what is natural is rational and common to every human being. Now let's discover what nature, how nature was considered. Enlightened thinkers rejected Calvinistic belief of life controlled by God or the devil, but they wanted to understand the world and to improve it. So not only to understand the world, but they also want to improve it. They had a new optimistic view of the natural world. So they thought that nature is benign and beautiful. So nature meant human nature, the environment and the universe beyond the earth, the complex set of principles divinely ordained and manifested in the creation. This is very similar, if you can remember, to the Elizabethan conception of microcosm and macrocosm. Very, very similar. Our last slide is about exploration. Explorations, yes, extremely important at the time because, after the discovery of America, a new social class wanted just to be trader and explorer. So the new optimism and the belief that reason could discover new horizons encourage exploration. And remember that the self-made man exploring, discovering new land is represented by Robinson Crusoe in the novel by Daniel Defoe. I have to stop here. Hope to be helpful. We are going to discuss about this. If you've got questions, write me an email. And anyway, I'm going back tomorrow with the next video. Okay? Bye bye.